So, what I've learned is I'm no good at making a Glogster, so I'm just posting video, and I'm going to try to do it that way. I have YouTubed and Googled and Binged every which way, and I just can't seem to figure that out. So, what I've learned in this class, the biggest idea that I learned is that collaboration is much harder and way more challenging than I originally believed. I always thought that because I was typically not someone that lived in conflict with other people, that I was an effective communicator and collaborator. But I really struggled throughout this school year with an authority figure at my job. I learned two concepts from this experience. Not everybody wants to collaborate, and that it's really a two-way street. And it's you can't if the person's not willing to meet you halfway, it stays at their level. And it takes time to determine if someone wants to collaborate, and actions speak louder if you are listening to those actions. After taking the communication styles quiz throughout this course, it revealed that we both had different communication styles of communication and had different needs. So I had to suspend my own needs in the relationship in order to reduce the conflict and the stress. But I think it also had an impact on my students. The second idea that I learned is that school administrators have a real frustration with the lack of collaboration in their schools and how important it is for the growth of their students. My interviews with assistant principals who have the primary role of supervising educators and also with student discipline really revealed their frustration with these petty squabbles among coworkers and co-teachers. Now, at my school, there's an unspoken rule that if you can't get along, they'll move one of you and half the class to a different classroom and allow you to teach independently for the next year. And whoever students perform the lowest, that teacher's not invited back, because they see it as a way of revealing weak teachers if you can't co-teach. Because co-teaching can mask weak teachers, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You can use co-teaching to help build up weaker teachers or newer teachers. The third thing I learned is that focusing on the needs of the students is the only and best way to create collaborating relationships. I found myself in several new collaboration experiences. At times I found myself compromising for reasons other than student achievement. A short-term solution did not have long-term positive results. I suggested a positive behavior plan in a classroom that I was put into and then compromised with their disagreement because I did not want to upset their system. The reason that they gave it was too close to the end of the year to start a new intervention. I was working with two gen ed teachers that struggled with classroom management because they had a mid-year registration of 5 students that were very disruptive. Behavior continues to still be a problem 3 weeks before the end of school, and one student has been targeted to go into most likely an EBD classroom with more restrictive environment. What challenged me? I was really challenged to consider my intentions, my assumptions, and my motivations within relationships in education. I collaborated with everyone from school lunch personnel, bus drivers, paraeducators, and principals. What I learned was to frame a question or a request from their perspective and how it could be a benefit to them. For example, when I first approached a bus driver about behavior of my students on their bus, she initially she came across as very defensive. The second time I approached her, I offered her power to suspend students off the bus. Special education bus drivers can be very frustrated because they can't suspend students because they're in special ed. I didn't offer to suspend them, but they could have a consequence when they entered my classroom for not behaving on the bus. Oftentimes, if I was not at lunch with my kids and they were acting up, I'd line them up and ask the lunch monitors to make the choice as to who would have a consequence or a reward for their behavior, and behavior improved in the lunchroom even though I wasn't there. With my principal, she's so busy, so I often would come up with a solution to the problem before I even approached her with it. She appreciated that I had come up with a solution and didn't just leave it in her lap. Sometimes we couldn't do it, but we were able to work together to come to a solution that might solve the problem. Revising my goals, I did communicate and collaborate with 3 of my parents. I worked with a behavior trainer pretty closely. About once a week we would talk about students and how I can be doing things differently. I did reach out to the counseling office because they had been seeing my students the year before every week, and then they just stopped because they said the behavior was too bad. But we were able to work something out after I listened to her and came up with something that worked for her. My next steps, I'm going to take more time to let the collaboration relationship develop and not go charging in thinking I know what to do or assuming that they have the same motivation and goals that I do. I'm still, I guess, I love the idea of co-teaching. For me, I think I've seen how tough it is. I've seen people put together that break up. They definitely do call it marriages in school and get divorces. I've seen one person control. The thing that really was eye-opening to me, and someone had warned this before I was a sped teacher, is that don't be the person in the room that makes the copies. Don't be the person that can step out and give over, that you're both co-teaching. It's not just a gen ed teacher and then you kind of work together. Then you're the only one that works on the special ed students. In my current end of the year classroom, all the kids moved around to different stations except for the special ed students. They were called special agents and they always stayed with me, and I just definitely disagreed with that. I think we should all be working with all of our kids. Now, I enter grades, I do all the IEP goals, but I did not believe that we should be separating our kids based on whether they had a disability or not. And that's something going forward, if it happens again, I would really need to figure out how to be collaborative with that, because I feel so strongly about it. I don't feel like I could compromise much on that at all, because I just feel that was just wrong. But that's one of my professional goals, is to figure out when I feel strongly about something, how would I collaborate with someone who I just definitely do not agree with. I really like the communication quiz. I'm going to use that going forward in my professional development. So thanks for listening, and see you online.